provides 9 kilocalories of energy per gram to the body. The amount required by the body is also provided through daily consumption and foods that contain fatty acids. But if we want to examine the most important rules of lipid together, we will reach the ability to store and use large amounts of fat enable humans to survive without food. And one of the most important type of fats are structured fats. Some fats deposits are not used effectively during fast. That is their duty hold the body organs and nerves in position and protect them against traumatic injury and shock. And I must also say this, when a person becomes obese, the subcutaneous fat gradually increase and their duty in insulated the body, presenting body heat and maintaining body temperature. And the next item is subcutaneous fat. The other function is essential for the digestion, absorption, and transit of the fat-soluble vitamins, and facilitates the digestive process by depresses gastric secretion, slows gastric emptying, and stimulates biliary and pancreatic flow. In the structure part, a very important point is that unlike carbohydrates, lipids are not polymers. And after that, we want to talk about fatty acids, and let's get to the building blocks of fats. It's named fatty acids. The most important characteristics of fatty acids are rarely free in nature, linked to other molecules, and unbranched hydrocarbon chain with an even number of carbons. And the fatty acids classified according to the number of carbons and number of double bonds and the position of double bonds in the chain. By the hydrophilic carboxylic acid head group, you can see in the figure. The important point is the melting temperature of a fat is depending to chain length and extent of saturation. Fats with shorter fatty acid chain or more double band are liquid at room temperature, and saturated fats, especially those with long chain, are solid at room temperature. For example, coconut oil, which is also highly saturated, is semi-liquid at room temperature because the predominant fatty acids are short, 8 to 14 carbons. And after the classification based on number of carbon, we have 4 parts. Short chain fatty acids, in abbreviation SCFA, 4 to 6 carbons. Medium chain fatty acids, 8 to 14. Long chain fatty acids, 16 to 20. And very long chain fatty acids, more than 20. And after that classification based on the number of double bonds, we have 3 parts. Saturated fatty acids, it has no double bond, it hasn't double bond, and monounsaturated fatty acid, in abbreviation is MUFA, only 1 double bond, and polyunsaturated fatty acid, in abbreviation is PUFA, it has 2 or more double bonds. And look at the picture. All carbon binding sites not linked to another carbon are linked to hydrogen and are therefore saturated. Please pay attention to the opposite table. it's important. A list of the most common fatty acids included in this table. A list of the most common fatty acids is included in this picture. Butyric, lauric, myristic, palmitic, and stearic. And the important points is fat source. For example, the source of lauric acid is coconut oil or palm kernel oil, and the source of stearic is cacao butter and animal fat. And palmitic acid is important in palm oil and animal fat. And the most important fatty acids that are unsaturated, now whether one number or higher, are as follows. The most important is oleic. The source of oleic is olive oil and canola oil. And linoleic acid, you can see in the most vegetable oils, especially safflower, corn, and soybeans and cottonseed. It's omega-3 and anti-inflammatory fatty acids. And after that, linolenic acid, it's you can see in the soybean oil, canola oil, walnuts, and wheat germs oil and flaxseed oil. After that, arachidonic acid, the source of this is lard and meat, and erosic. You should you should know about DHA and EPA, the most important omega-3 fatty acids, and the source of them is some fish oil, shellfish, canola oil, and we explain later. Well, and you have to know fatty acids with double bonds are vulnerable to oxidative damage, and humans store fat as saturated palmitic fatty acid and stearic fatty acid. That's very important, and other warm-blooded organisms. On the other hand, cell membranes must be stable and flexible for optimum function, and membrane are possible to contain one short fatty acid and one polyunsaturated fatty acid, mainly arachidonic acid. It has 20 carbons and 4 double bonds, the first of which is 6 carbons from the terminal methyl group. And another fatty acids that can be placed in the cell membrane is EPA or eicosapentaenoic acid. It has 20 carbons and 5 double bonds. It's found in marine organisms. But there is a classification based on the nature of the double bonds, the main one being the classification based on the omega carbon. Omega notations the placement of the first double bond counting from the methyl end. The notice in this part is only plants, including marine phytoplankton, can synthesize omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. So, as a result, animals cannot synthesize omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. And humans can place double bond as low as the omega-9 carbon. The next topic in this is the process of producing fatty acids from each other. The rule of desaturate and elongate. As you can see in the picture, two enzymes play a role in it, desaturase and elongase. Arachidonic acid, as you can see, is converted from linoleic acid omega-6 fatty acid by enzyme elongase and desaturase, and EPA or eicosapentaenoic acid and DHA or docosahexaenoic acid is converted from linolenic acid, omega-3 fatty acid. So the next issue that the longer chain fatty acids, important component of the cell membranes and precursor of eicosanoids such as prostaglandins, thromboxans, and leukotrienes. Eicosanoids localize or paracrine hormones, and the most important functions is one, alter the size and permeability of the blood vessel, and alter the activity of platelet and contribute to blood clotting. Uh, and modify the processes of inflammation. And I want to say derivation of omega-3 fatty acids from dietary source or fish oil can have beneficial effect in a number of disease states. Well, you can see in the picture the pro-inflammatory part include eicosanoid, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, and thromboxans, uh, is converted from arachidonic acid and linoleic acid, and minimally inflammatory include eicosanoid, and inflammation resolvins include resolvins and protectins. So we call omega-3 and anti-inflammatory factors is converted from the DHA or docosahexaenoic acid and EPA or eicosapentaenoic acid and linolenic acid. All these pathways are performed through two enzymes, elongase and desaturase, and these cycles are defined as cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase. Excess, the important question is what the fate of excess omega-6 fatty acids in the diet. The excess omega-6 fatty acids in the diet saturate the enzymes and prevent conversion of alpha-linolenic acid into longer EPA and DHA forms, influence neurotransmissions and thus brain function, and the important is the optimal omega-6 per omega-3 ratio has been estimated to be 2:1 or 2:3:1, and it's 4 times lower than the current intake, and recommended is consume more omega-3 fatty acids from vegetable and marine sources. The source of omega-3, for example, alpha-linolenic acid is flaxseed, canola, and soybean oil, and EPA and DHA you can see in the marine cod liver oil, mackerel, salmon, and sardines, as well as crab, shrimp, and oysters. And we are going to explain one of the very important fatty acids that are classified as the most harmful fatty acids in the diet, called trans fatty acids. In natural unsaturated fatty acids, two hydrogens on the same side of the double bonds, the cis isomer form, causing the fatty acid to bond. In fact, the difference between the cis form and the trans form is found in the position of a hydrogen atom in the double bond. As you can see in the figure, trans position one hydrogen on opposite sides of the double bonds. The table is the figure is delayed. And you can see the transposition and one hydrogen on the opposite side of the double bonds. But what does this matter to us? Uh, can also contain trans fatty acids from bacterial fermentation in the rumen of cows and sheep. A major source of trans fatty acids is margarine, butter, and animal fat. And membrane function depends on the three-dimensional configuration of membrane fatty acids found in phospholipids. Its negative effect on human health due to their influence on membrane function. And the notice in this part is trans fatty acids do not bend. They pack into the membrane as tightly as if they were fully saturated. And membrane's solidity is important for membrane protein function. The next part is higher intakes of fatty acids increase risk for coronary heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, and allergies because of their potential to influence membrane fluidity. And in addition, trans fatty acids inhibit the saturation and elongation of linoleic acid and linoleic. And as you know, long-chain PUFA are critical for fetal brain and organ development. So we recommend limiting intake of trans fatty acid to as little as possible. So if we want to have a summary of saturated fatty acid, trans fatty acid, and unsaturated fats, we can point out this point. In the saturated fats derived largely from animal products like meat, dairy, and eggs, but also plant-based source, and divided opinions on whether harmful or beneficial. In trans fat used to extend the shelf life of processed foods, no longer recognized as safe by the FDA, and in unsaturated fats derived from vegetable and plants, comprised of monounsaturated fats like in avocados, olives, and nuts, and polyunsaturated fats like in sesame oil, and the last point is omega-3 fatty acid is unsaturated fatty acids. When we come to explain that the deficiency of essential fatty acids can be harmful for us, greater availability of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids may allow humans to develop their complex brain and neural system. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA, are crucial for the human brain, central nervous system, and membrane throughout the body. And omega-3 fatty acids deficiency, learning problems and impaired visions, and polydipsia. Polydipsia is the medical definition of excessive thirst. Change essential fatty acid deficiency changes vascular membrane lipid composition, increase incidence of atherosclerotic and inflammatory disorders can result as abnormal omega-6 per omega-3 ratio. And the next point is deficiencies of omega-6 essential fatty acid can be growth retardation, skin lesions, and reproductive failure, fatty liver, and polydipsia. And fat-free diets may lead to essential fatty acids deficiencies and eventually death if the missing nutrient is not provided. On the other hand, too much PUFA can be dangerous. You should keep in mind that double bonds are highly reactive, bind oxygen to form peroxides when exposed to air or heat. And in the process of frying or cooking, PUFA can generate high level of toxic aldehyde products that promote cardiovascular disease and cancer. That can be very dangerous. And saturated fat oils have fewer oxygen binding site and have increased stability, longer shelf life. However, their intake is associated with greater risk of cardiovascular disease because it reduces the fluidity of the membrane and they can be deposited in blood vessels. If we want to have a general recommendation, these points are very important. Trans fatty acids kept in the minimum and total fat intake kept between 20 to 35% of total calories, and most of the fat coming from PUFA and MUFA. Finally, I would like to thank Dr. Shahnush, my dear teacher, for giving me this opportunity to serve you for another session. If you have any question, I will listen and answer as much as I know. If you don't have any question, I will need your presence. Have a good time.